Meanwhile, this is a stunning story. It's an op-ed, really, in in Forbes magazine. It's really worthwhile because it dovetails with another report that is out in terms of education. It's written by a guy named Gene Marks in Forbes magazine. And I don't know anything about this guy. And perhaps his heart seems in the right place. But is this delusion by the establishment in this country, which is a big part of the problem? And, you know, I was on Radigan's program on Monday, and Radigan and I had our classic argument where he didn't want to hear about ideological differences. He wanted to talk about exclusively the extraction that's taking place by the banks and by the big insurance companies from our economy, i.e., the fact that they take more money out of our economy than they actually produce for our economy. But at the root of this extraction is not simply graft. It is not just that our politicians raise their money from these people. That is a big part of it. But it is they are of the same mentality. I don't think Gene Marks got paid by anybody to write this. Obviously, Forbes paid him, but to take this position, it is a mentality. It is an ideological mentality. And to ignore its existence is to do so at the peril of our society. He's talking about a president's speech that he gave in Kansas about inequality in America. And he's praising the president's speech. And he admits that the opportunities for the 99% have become harder to realize. He says, my kids are no smarter than similar kids their age from the inner city. My kids have it much easier than their counterparts from West Philadelphia. He presumably is in another part of Philadelphia. The world is not fair to those kids mainly because they had the misfortune of being born 2 miles away into a more difficult part of the world and with a skin color that makes realizing the opportunities that the president spoke about much harder. This is a fact in 2011. And I commend him for understanding this fact. But he goes on to write, if I were a poor black kid, I would first and most importantly, work to make sure I got the best grades possible. I would make it my #1 priority to be able to read sufficiently. I wouldn't care if I was a student at the worst public middle school in the worst inner city. Even the worst have their best. Now think about this. If this middle-aged white man was a poor black child, what he would do is he would excel at school. And, he writes, I would use the technology available to me as a student. I know a few school teachers, and they tell me that many inner-city parents usually have or can afford cheap computers and internet service nowadays. If I was a poor black kid, I'd use the free technology available to help me to study. I'd become an expert at Google Scholar. I'd visit study sites like SparkNotes and CliffNotes to help me understand books. I'd watch relevant teachings on Academic Earth, TED, and Khan Academy. I would also, when possible, get my books for free at Project Gutenberg and learn how to do research at the CIA World Factbook and Wikipedia to help me with my studies. If I were a poor black child, this is what I would do. Is this easy? No, it's not. It's hard. And it takes a special kind of kid to succeed. But it's not impossible. The tools are there, the technology are there, and the opportunities are there. Well, I have a question for Gene Marks. As a middle-aged white man who's not poor, why aren't you excelling more? Why are you just writing for Forbes? Why aren't you publishing Forbes? Why don't you own Forbes? Why aren't you a billionaire? If it was that much easier for you to do it, which you concede, why didn't you excel? Why weren't you the top of your class? Perhaps you were. And this is all you have to show for it? Why haven't you cured cancer? Why haven't you created world peace? You know what I would do if I was a poor black child? I would just become a millionaire. Because one day I'd be a poor black child, and the next day I'd be a rich black child. In Philadelphia, there are nationally recognized magnet schools. I would use the internet to research each one of these schools so I could find out how I could be admitted. I would find out the names of the admissions people and go to meet with them. If I were a poor black kid, I would make it my goal to get into one of these schools, or even a private school. Most have scholarship programs. If I were a poor black kid, I'd be using technology to research these schools on the internet too and making them know that I exist, that I get good grades, and I want to go to their school. If I was a poor black kid, I would get technical. I would learn software. I would learn to write code. The biggest challenge we face isn't inequality, it's ignorance. So many kids from West Philadelphia don't even know these opportunities exist for them. But you know, if Gene was a poor black child, he could be there to tell all these kids about it. From all the stuff that he gained from being a middle-aged white guy, he could impart that knowledge to him as a poor black child and tell the other poor black children. Technology can help these kids, but only if these kids want to be helped. Not just only if these kids want to be helped. The thing that he is missing here, the problem with this entire piece, no matter how well-intentioned, is that he completely ignores the role that government and society has in providing these poor black kids, or whomever it is, with the access and the awareness that it's going on. He turns this story into a moral play for the righteousness of the individual, when in fact this story is not about the righteousness of the individual, and he's so close to understanding it. But his ideology refuses to allow him to see that it is society's role to impart this knowledge to that poor black kid, because we cannot take the mindset of a middle-aged white guy who's writing for Forbes magazine and impart that knowledge into that poor black kid just because he wants to write an op-ed about it. It is the role of government to do this, and we are failing on that accord. Failing on it. I think just it's also much easier just for the poor black kid just to become a millionaire. Just jump ahead. And then he can find out about all that other stuff.
The poor black kids from West Philadelphia should just go live with their auntie and uncle in Bel Air.
Bingo!